Every 4 seconds, someone dies in India, and 80% of them will burn. But what actually happens in those final moments? What are the people who witness it every single day? The workers, the families, the mourners see that we're too afraid to ask about. If you've ever feared death or wondered what really happens after, this journey will change everything you thought you knew. Picture this: smoke so thick it sticks to the back of your throat for hours. Heat that feels like it's melting your skin from 10 feet away. The sound of wood crackling mixed with prayers in Sanskrit that haven't changed in 3,000 years. This is Manikarnika Ghats in Varanasi, and it burns 300 bodies per day. That's one every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for over 3 millennia. Now meet Raju. He's 34 years old, and he's Dom, a cremation worker. 4th generation. He started this job when he was 12. His very first body? His uncle's. Tradition demanded that he light the pyre himself. He still remembers how his hands shook holding the torch, how the wood caught faster than he expected, how everyone watched him, waiting to see if he'd cry. He didn't. But Raju's story isn't about death. It's about what death teaches the living. Here's something they don't show in spiritual documentaries. A single cremation costs between 3,000 Indian rupees to 100,000 Indian rupees. That's $36 to $1,200. For most Indian families, that's 3 months' salary, gone in 4 hours. Pradeep was 52 when his mother died. He'd been saving for 8 years, not for a car, not for his daughter's wedding, to afford his mother's proper cremation with enough sandalwood. You heard that right. 8 years. Here's the math that'll blow your mind. 400 kilograms of wood per body, times 300 bodies per day, times 600 Indian rupees per kilogram. That's 72 million Indian rupees per year, just in Varanasi, just in wood. And that smoke you saw earlier? A 2019 study from the Indian Institute of Technology found that burning ghats contribute 8% of India's urban air pollution. That's equivalent to 200,000 cars running nonstop. Now, there are alternatives. Electric crematoriums exist. They're cleaner, faster, and cost 70% less. But there's massive cultural resistance. More on that in a minute. Here's where Pradeep's story gets real. After the cremation, he went home to discover his mother had left a note, hidden in her jewelry box. It said, "Don't waste money on my death. I'd rather you used it while I was alive to take me places." He broke down, because she was right. But the real cost isn't economic. It's psychological, and it's affecting millions in ways nobody's talking about. Ready for this? One family controls all cremations in Varanasi, the Dam Raja dynasty, worth an estimated 150 Indian rupees crore. That's $18 million. They've held monopoly rights since the 8th century. Archaeological records from Banaras Hindu University verify this. For over 1,200 years, one family has decided who burns, when they burn, and what it costs. Meet Lakshmi. She's 67 now. When her husband died 3 years ago, she couldn't afford the Dom's fees. His body waited 18 hours, in summer heat, in Varanasi. She describes the smell, the shame of neighbors watching, the begging, the feeling that she'd failed him in the most important moment. "I couldn't even give him dignity in death," she told me, her voice cracking. "What kind of wife does that make me?" Now here's why this monopoly exists. The ancient caste system meets modern economics. Doms are considered untouchable in the traditional hierarchy, literally the lowest caste. But the Ghats? They're kings. It's the only place their caste actually gives them power. The twist? A local NGO, started in 2020 now, helps families like Lakshmi's negotiate prices or offers alternative cremation sites free of charge. Last year, they helped 1,400 families. But there's something happening at these Ghats that scientists can't explain. A 2021 Oxford University study found something incredible. People who regularly witness death show 34% lower anxiety about their own mortality. Think about that. Being around death makes you less. Some call it death tourism. It generates 50 Indian rupees crore annually for Varanasi. Controversial? Absolutely. But here's a story that'll make you think twice. Marcus is 41, from Germany. He came to Varanasi right after his father was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He stayed for 3 weeks, just watching. I sat there every evening, he told me, watching strangers mourn, watching families cry, watching the smoke rise. And one day, I realized I'd been running from the one conversation my dad needed most. He flew home, had the talk. His father died 6 weeks later. But we said everything, Marcus said. Everything. If you've been avoiding that hard conversation with a parent, a spouse, someone you love, this is your sign. Have it. Today. And there's science backing this up. The Journal of Death Studies published research in 2020 showing that death exposure therapy, literally being around death or death imagery, reduced thanatophobia by 28% in clinical trials. But here's what shocked me most. The DOMs themselves? They have a completely different relationship with death than you'd ever expect. Raju told me something that made my blood run cold. DOMs are not allowed to attend their own family's cremations. Tradition forbids it. He works 12-hour shifts, handles 20-plus bodies daily, and he hasn't cried in 22 years. A 2018 study from the Tata Institute of Social Sciences found that 67% of cremation workers show signs of emotional detachment disorder. They've seen so much death that they've stopped feeling it. Raju judges wood quality by the sound it makes. He positions bodies by weight distribution. He times cremations by bone color. White means complete. Gray means more wood needed. You stop seeing people, he said flatly. You see work. But then COVID hit. For 100 bodies per day. With shortages. Mass pyres. Global cameras filming everything. And that's when Raju broke. I saw a young woman, he said, his voice dropping. Maybe 24. She looked like my daughter. And suddenly I saw all of them. Every single person I burned. They weren't work anymore. They were people. He cried for the first time in over 2 decades. And that's when the government decided to intervene. In 2023, the Indian government proposed mandatory electric cremation for 30% of all deaths. It sparked protests across 47 cities. The data was clear. National Environmental Engineering Research Institute showed electric cremation cuts emissions by 92% and costs 70% less. But here's the pushback. 73% of Hindus say traditional fire is essential for soul liberation. That's 2024 Pew Research data. So what's the solution? Meet Dr. Ananya Sharma. She's 39, an engineer, and she designed something brilliant, hybrid cremation. It combines natural gas efficiency with traditional ritual structure. She piloted it in Bangalore. First year, 12% acceptance rate. 18 months later, 61%. People don't resist change, she told me. They resist losing meaning. So if you're thinking about your own end-of-life wishes or a loved one's, here's what to actually consider. Cultural meaning, environmental impact, family financial burden. All three matter. A Harvard Death and Dying study from 2022 found that families who discuss these preferences beforehand report 45% less guilt and conflict after the death. 45%, just from one conversation. But here's what nobody tells you about these conversations. 80% of Indians have never discussed their death preferences with family, and 92% of those families later regret it. Arjun is 29 now. When his father had a sudden heart attack 2 years ago, the family had no idea what he wanted. Traditional cremation? Electric? Burial? Nobody knew. We were screaming at each other, Arjun said, over his body, in the hospital hallway. The one conversation we avoided destroyed us when it mattered most. He couldn't change what happened with his father, but he could change what happens next. Now he runs workshops teaching families how to have the talk. Last year, 3,000 people attended. Here are 3 questions to ask this week, not someday. This week, what do you want to happen? How do you want it to happen? And who pays? That's it. 3 questions. 15-minute conversation. Could save your family years of guilt. Because here's what Raju, Pradeep, Marcus, and Arjun all learned in their own way. Death isn't the enemy. Silence about death is. The average person will attend 9 funerals in their lifetime, but have 0 conversations about their own. That's 9 lessons completely ignored. So here's what I need to know. Have you had the conversation with your family? And if not really what's actually stopping you, comment ready if you're finally going to talk about it. Comment scared if you're still not sure. Or comment done if you've already had the talk. I'm reading every single one, and I want to know where you're at. And if you want the free guide on how to start this conversation without making it awkward, because let's be honest, it's awkward, it's in the description below. Remember what the people at the Burning Ghats taught us. The only death we should actually fear